Now, in our Memex tradition, usually the opening of the conference and the first talk is held by our I-Square CEO and founder, Michael Schießl. Today, we're actually breaking with this tradition by giving the stage to Julia first. But I'm very happy to announce now that Michael will take over and give us the first talk of the day, and he will talk about usability to user experience to human experience. A few words about Michael, just a few. Michael is a psychologist, a market research expert, and also a pioneer in the implicit. As head of the company, he's always looking to see the bigger picture, and Michael is often among the first ones to detect new possibilities, which promise new fields of research and entail successful relations. Now, Michael, if you're ready, we're looking forward to a very inspirational presentation.
No, wonderful to be here on the 26th Memex, and thanks you for coming. Thanks again, Julia. I think that was a great starting point, and art has many possibilities, and as you said, the signs of the art at least want to go deeper. They even want to go to the level of healing, to the level of the body, to the level of the soul, to the level of the mind, and much appreciated. And certainly not everything is totally synchronized, and artists have their expressions, and we might have other forms of expressions. But I think this kind of basic model you reiterated, which certainly we find in all the cultures, the concept of the body, the concept of the soul, and the concept of the mind, which you might also find if you read Thomas of Aquinas, so you find it very well. We try to integrate it also in I-Square's neurosemiotic approach, which has, you might know that, the system 0, the system 1, and the system 2. And I want to use this time to kind of dig into 3 streams of studies which I find in person very interesting, and I allow myself just to use the stage for that. And certainly I don't only find it in person very relevant, but certainly I also find it for I-Square very relevant, and hopefully you, the ones who either work here at I-Square or work with I-Square or are part of our big academia network, find it interesting and relevant. In the terminology of our maybe first DNA, which Simon called man-machine interaction, at least back in the 90s, this was the word Mensch-Maschine. You could see a very, very clear trend, and the trends are not complicated to understand. Very clear is the overall trend on the methodological side to be coined from usability to user experience to human experience. This is as glass clear as the essay of Vannevar Bush was, together with Friedrich Kittler, which was a great teacher of Julia and me. I read a little bit from Vannevar Bush, and I certainly recommend you also to read his essays, but you don't have to read them. You get enough here from the Memex. What I wanted to say with that, Vannevar Bush in the game of the computer development was not the genius. Maybe the geniuses are von Neurath. Maybe the genius is Zuse. Maybe the genius is Turing. Bush was an engineer, he was a good scientist, but overall he was a manager. He was a superb manager of the US technology program, which I would say at the end of the day caused the victory over Hitler. Certainly has a lot of other roots, but one root was from Vannevar Bush. And he was not a genius. So that's why you don't have to read him. It's just that he was extremely glass clear. He brought the knots together, extremely easy, extremely straightforward. He said, we have the computer now. Nobody could use that computer besides, I don't know, these high-trained 1,000 women and men in the USA, but nobody else was able to use it. But in 1945, he was very clear there will be a way how the computer will be used. And the first problem which has to be resolved is the usability, that non-experts could also handle the computer. Maybe command language was the first step for that. The second step will be that there is some kind of a experience. Experience is a very, very vague word. In concrete terms, it means simply you have maybe a picture or maybe you have a video on your screen, you know, something which is not pure text. And this happened. And he also envisioned that the next step will be what we would coin today human experience, how we think, how we interact, and what our value systems are. So I think this track is absolutely glass clear. I'm very happy that my teachers always made clear to me it's not easy to predict the future. The future will go straight forward amongst the lines of technology. And that's what's happening now. And we take the same course. So we go amongst the lines of technology from graphical user interfaces to videos on the internet, to natural language system where you could interact with a computer as you do with a human being. So when we look back, I want to summarize here, where are the changes now in the harmony between man, humans, and machines? And I want to follow this path, as said, among the lines of I-Square's neurosemiotic model of the system 0, the system 1, the system 2, and the system X. And I'm going to explain you the system. The system 0, we've called the system 0, so because it's the starting point. You could also use the word perception. You know, what you see, what you feel. You could use a little bit a higher word, attention, for that. Nothing wrong with that, but that's the first point. As Julia pointed out, this point is insofar the point of the body, since these are senses. This is your body. The first point, the system 0, is the point of the body. Then we coin the next level, the system 1, following big theories like Kahneman's theory, which is still very influential and which is very, very important. And the system 1 would be like your first reflection to your body signals, your emotions, you know, how you see something and normally you feel something about it. Even if you are bored and even if you're sleeping, you sometimes somehow feel something. And the system 2 is the kind of ability of us to speak, to reflect on what we do, to have a kind of inner reflections of the things we do, and the sys X is right in the middle. The point where it is all connected. You could see the system X from the perspective of neuroscience. Then Metzinger might call it the phenomenal holon. So there's a point in the brain where all the activity is connected to a single point. And you could see it, if you want, from a very transcendental perspective, what's the highest point? And the decisive question for everybody who's in relations with other humans is, what is at the end in the system X? Kind of what is really happening. In Christian terms, you might call it the heart, but you don't have to use Christian terms for that. But there is something in us which connects all the other systems. So I want to show you these analyses. First of all, I want to walk you through the system 0, the way of attention. I want to show you again a thing you might know. Attention is scarce. It's not easy to get. I want to show you some data about the Gen X. I want to talk longer about, or I want to talk about the system 1, especially on the implicit side. Especially, I want to show you data which are in a way very familiar to me because they are the starting point of my career, the big data they have in the United States of America about the change of implicit attitudes. They collected tons of data, and it's very interesting. I want to share some more or less surprising data about the system X. Okay, we start with the system 0. Why is the system 0 outside psychology relevant? You could make a lot of stories. I like to make this one. Do you know what this is? Yes, this is the first internet advertising. This is the first internet advertising. And yeah, I was so involved, I excuse myself. It says, have you ever clicked your mouse right here? And then it said, you will. I don't have the exact data. Google about it. Maybe 1995 on wired.com. They already had an internet in the US. They had 10 million people or 15 million people on wired.com. Have you ever clicked your mouse right here? I thought for a long time the first internet advertising was done by, sorry to the team, don't get me wrong, by the system administration. So nobody really thought about it. We just put up something on the internet where it says, have you ever clicked your mouse right here? You will. But it was not done by the system administration. It was done by a superb US agency. They've done a big campaign for AT&T to provide their products. It had a lot of strategic background. They said, we talked extensively about the fact, and we don't want to feel it like an ad. The agency wanted to make an ad, which is not an ad. We don't want to sell somebody something. No, this was not the aim. I think it was a great creative act. And how many people do you think have clicked? Who says 10% clicked? Who says 20% clicked? 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%. Everybody clicked. No, most of you weren't playing correctly with me. Astonishingly, I read it. I sometimes tell it in the wrong way. 44% did a click. I mean, wasn't that impressive? 44% humans clicked on the first advertising on the internet. What's the problem now? I mean, if the click would have been the perfect metrics of the internet and the perfect metrics of advertising, we wouldn't have needed attention or human experience or stuff like that. It would have been a straight game. We have to click. we build our business on the click and everybody gets rich. It wasn't like that exactly, maybe for some players, because you know the reason people don't click anymore, or not so much. So today the click-through rate is below 1.0. It's not that people don't click at all. If you own a dog, like I'm a dog owner, you sometimes have to click. This is an I-square example. Which package of dog food do you want to purchase? And if I have a dog, I have to do a click at the end of the day. That's for sure. But as said, the click is no more the sole metrics, and also animals don't give you everything. Like in this nice example done years ago, we see that advertising, that the media is even stronger than the little dog. You see the dog? There's sadly no attention to this dog, which is very good for the advertising because the lady remembers Subaru. But this is a very important analysis Dr. Rotensee and the whole BMX team has done. If people have animals at home, it's not so easy to advertise, but it's not so strong, but you have down impressions. So there was the click on the internet. What came after the click, you might remember that. There came, or I don't know if you remember, you don't have to be in the discussion, but after the click, since people didn't click on advertising anymore in such big numbers, there came up a new indicator which was called ad impression. Ad impression. Do you remember that? No. What would you suppose an ad impression would be? Well, I thought an ad impression is, I don't know, an ad impression. You know, you see an ad or something like that. The problem is an ad impression is not that somebody sees an ad. So big managers, Richard Pritchard, here I name prominently, he was leading the marketing for Procter & Gamble 10 years ago, 15 years ago. He was suddenly shocked and said, we are throwing out our marketing dollar for nothing, and we buy a lot of things because he didn't read the things which are printed in small fonts. If you look at the definition of the ad impression, it is a standard served ad impression, counts every time an ad is sent. And you have to be an engineer to understand, or you have to think deeper what this means. It doesn't mean that an ad is on a client. It means that something is happening on an ad server. And an ad server isn't necessarily the user at the end. There's a big technical issues between that. Imagine build.com, you have a big website. In the background, you have a lot of servers, and much of this advertising was never delivered to the clients. It didn't happen like that. And so some people in the economy felt fooled. Yeah, could be. But as said, they simply haven't read the things in small letters, and they didn't understand the background of that because the ad impression was not attention. Then other parameters came, viewability came. My friend Max built up a successful company and sold it. So there was a lot of new business going on, and it's all good, but definitely we would say you have to cross the side of the machine, and you have to need something like which is really the system zero for many, many reasons. For instance, banners don't need to be clicked to influence product purchase. You don't need that. People also act in other ways. Also an important point which we are now getting much more in our research, I want to make on the second slide. Content is much more important than you think. But you need good data for that. You need sandbox approaches to understand which content will drive the next behavioral level. And this drives purchase intention. Now we are going through this presentation with my silly quiz master mode. You see here somebody interacting with the internet, a great study for screen force. Do you think older, younger, older, younger? If I make the question so obvious, you might not. Older, younger, where's the difference? I think this is obvious, and I want to reiterate the obvious here on the Memex, and we all know that. So we have the youngers on the left side, and we have the olders on the right side. The younger ladies and the younger men, especially the Gen Z, could go extremely fast, could go fast, at least faster than the older generation. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You only have short time intervals. This is from this study, less time by younger people. We could also have a macro view on the attention. This is now great eye tracking data, again, thanks to the brand and media experience team. To give you what I see in this chart and just reiterate that also overall on the internet, the most spots you find get less attention, driven by many facts. It's not only the young, also the older ones spend less attention, but to find spots on the internet where you get attention is not so easy. you have to find them. I mean, they are there and they don't function. And I think today we are glass clear, we at iSquare, and many other players in the industry are glass clear. We need a really human-based indicator for the first step in media. And I think the word of attention is an extremely good word. This is our definition. Attention is the ability of humans to select one stimulus over the other by a meaningful integration of perception, emotion, and cognition to fulfill the desire. The desire would kind of hit the system X, and the other systems are very measurable. I'm very happy. I don't want to spoil the party, but I'm so happy that our guests from OMD are here. And today, but it's not my job, but I just a little bit the pre-stage for that. We also announce our great partnership, the great initiative, Attention Works. Thank you very much. We appreciate very much that such a great media agency understands that very well and wants to use it. And we are totally convinced, certainly, that attention is kind of a system zero, or attention, perception, however you wanna call it exactly. But the first level, the level of the body, is an extremely relevant level. And now, you know, we always play the same games, sometimes reframed and find the F, train your own attention system, find the F. How many Fs are in this text? Count the number of Fs. This is an attention task. Selective attention. How many Fs? Now you don't have to shout it out. I just follow my clicky. Who counted 1? Raise your hands. Who counted 2? Raise your hands. Who counted 3? Raise, 3. Who counted 4? Raise your hands. Who counted 5? Raise your hands. If you counted 5, you're in a good family with a great large language model. Llama 3 also counted 5. Who counted 6? ChatGPT, you're in good community with ChatGPT, also counted 6, maybe with a double mistake. If you do Python, you also find 6. So Python, we might all know, is the little brother of the truth. It's 6. Who counted 7? Nobody. give me another large language model. Counted 7. I don't want to go, and 1 of 4 are right. I don't want to go into the detail why large language models are so utterly wrong. There's a big discussion about that, but I want to show you why humans have severe problems, because they overlook the little f, because our attention system is guided by our, let's call it easy, by our implicit expectation system that already knows that this letter might come up. Now, a very silly task, an unresolvable task. Let's have a look on Netflix. I'm going to present a wonderful study also of the I² data science team. Let's have a look on Netflix. I think the most important unifying global media platform. Find the F. This is a very stupid task. So we've done here this wonderful study. Thanks again to Madeleine Macarantes, Daniel Döringer, Felix Fischer. They participate in the EYES for ICU, a European-funded project, and supported Dr. Santiago Leon Martinez. And he found the F on Facebook. You find the F when you do heat map analysis, and you find a clear F pattern on Netflix if you have the first moment of attention. So in other words, the kind of the little advertisings on the left and on the upper side, they are somehow better. So the carousel has an F shape. Here's the paper writing the carousel. Read it. I think this is really interesting, or just listen to my talk carefully. Hope you also understand it. And the F shape is a kind of a shape you could take home. If you know nothing, then the F is a very good assumption. If you know a little bit more about Netflix, for instance, if you know that people not only stay on Netflix for 2 seconds, but as I do often with my wife, are in a boring process. So what should we watch? Then you see a lot of things. And then interestingly, you get very, very different attention patterns. Over time on Netflix, you get a totally shaped curve. You get an F from the other side. It's maybe not so pronounced, but it exists, it is there. So the longer the time is on Netflix, the less clear is the F shape. We found that revolutionary. We find everything about eye tracking revolutionary. Also, you get it in the data. But I think an interesting point is, for instance, if you want to buy media, or if you want to attract your people, or if you want to do a good usability, also think about the later stages of attention. They might be very, very different. And these spots might be the interesting spots for various reasons. So if you think about attention, you have certainly a clear picture. You have a picture which is easy to predict. Even specialized AIs give you something about attention on Netflix. But it's not meaningful if you really want to understand where are the zones of my attention. So to summarize the system zero, I would say attention is scarce. This we all know. It's precious. It's necessary. The generation Z is becoming more extreme. On the one hand, they have very, very short attention spans. On the other hand, they have very long attention spans. Attention is not easy to predict. We do a lot of efforts also in understanding AI-based prognosis. We also use that for our own, so we don't say it's wrong, but it's very, very hard to predict attention. For instance, optimal patterns emerge from inverted F shapes and not the other way around. And you can't force attention. There are many reasons why you can't force attention. A simpler reason for me would be even the indicators you get from the internet are not sufficient in doing that. You know, if the mouse click, if the ad viewability, if all these indicators are a bit fuzzy, they might not be enough. They might help you, but they might not be enough. And I would say create meaningful attention, do creations. Okay, then we come now into the system one and the system two. So I'll integrate both. And one could say that, as said, from a neuro perspective, a big part of the brain is connected with perception, maybe 80%. But also the next big part of the brain is the emotional part, the big connection, and then you have the explicit level. That's how we would connect it. I want to go back also in history, using again the wording of explicit, implicit. They are there, so it's not historic wordings, but these are decisive wordings. Mazarin Banashi, for instance, at Howard University is using. A good friend of us, because she was my teacher, I know her very well, and I understand the research in a way very, very well. That's why I also wanted to share that with you. I started to use reaction time measurement back in the days, like in the year 1995, and you could get a dissertation with reaction time measurement with, I don't know, 60 participants or stuff like that. In this paper, they analyzed the data set of 7 million US people. So they have big data sets. To give you a feeling how reaction time measurement runs, I want to do with you the Stroop test. The Stroop test. The Stroop test is very easy. You see something and you should name the color. Let's try it. I make it 1, 2, 3 now that you have it ready and you know how to do it. What is the color? 1, 2, 3, blue. Very good. What is the color? Color. What is the color? Blue. What is the color? What is the color? What is the color? What is the color? So all reaction time measurements kind of rely on this kind of congruency and incongruency effects. If you write blue in blue, then it's totally congruent. You're very, very fast in answering. If you write blue in red, then there are some incongruencies and you need a longer time. That's used in implicit research, for instance, to detect social prejudices. I don't want to explain the whole test in detail, but you're going to pair certain stimuli with certain attributes. For instance, you compare the more black picture or a more white picture in the category of good or bad, and then you try to separate attributes. And then you have congruent and incongruent categories. I think I don't have the time to explain the whole IIT, so I'm going to jump in the results. These tests, as said, the implicit association test was starting around 1995. We used it in Germany to research East and West Germans. In person, I think it's very sad that the degree of quality of German social and empirical research is comparable low with the USA, but since the year 2000, and better than since the year 2007, they have incredible big data sets in the US, sample sizes of 7 millions, and they are able to track on a long term how implicit biases change. So let's go into the first bias, which is the sexuality bias. This is the question, do you discriminate on an implicit level between man and woman? Would you see men more competent, more strong, women more weak, and something like that? That's a common stereotype. Could be measured on the explicit level, could be measured on the implicit level. By the mid of the 90s, this was found much more pronounced on the implicit level because people tend to express themselves less prejudiced if you just ask them on a rating scale. Where did it go? It decreased since 2007. Overall implicit biases on the sexuality level decreased. I think that's a positive change in the, at least we have good data for the US. The same with race, not as much pronounced, but also race prejudices, also in the implicit race biases decreased, and skin tone biases decreased. I think that's also very interesting, and that's certainly a little bit a different picture than just assuming that societies are forced into their prejudices. They could change, and they did change in the US. Not all biases get better. The world is not just getting better, to say it very, very simple. The age bias, so being biased against elderly people, is getting a little bit higher. Biases against disability getting a little bit higher, and body weight biases are getting a little bit higher. Here again, summarize. So sexuality, race, skin tone, things are getting better. Age, disability, body weight are getting less severe. They've done a lot of analysis also on the Gen Z. I also don't want to go into the details, just give you the summaries. The younger are less biased on most of the topics. For race attitudes, Gen Z is less biased. Also could be seen as a positive signal. Sexuality, same pattern. Here you see the summary, age, race, and sexuality. So overall, we see that the Gen Z is going in a less biased direction. It's a very positive signal, I would say. Also keep that in mind. If you work for the Gen Z, they aren't more biased. Contrary, in many things, they are less biased. How do you change implicit attitudes? This is, I would say, the big nexus question of social psychology. We in business normally are not directly related with that question, but maybe we are indirectly related with this question because our company has a purpose in this and that direction. What's the number one way to change it? There is a big research done in social psychology, what methods would help you. So training empathic responding, there was no positive signal for that. So if you sit together with the people and do a training in empathic responding, nothing. Perspective talking, no. Imagining into contact, no. Let's put it in a nutshell and make it a little bit also stereotypical or a caricature from my side. If you teach theory, no. The biggest thing which is changing implicit attitudes are vivid counter-stereotypic scenarios, countering stereotypical creations. You know, if the media changes, and I think that's what exactly happened in the last 20 years, if the media changes, if it shows different women, different men, this brings the big change. So creation is the point for the change here. So I would summarize that that implicit and explicit bias related to sex, race, skin are decreasing. However, there's a slight increase in biases concerning age, disability, and body weight, and create counter-stereotypical creations. Use implicit data, use them in social research because their connection between discriminatory behavior is much bigger, so that's a little bit the negative side. Use them in marketing research because you get much better data regarding choice explanation. And now I want to come into the topic of the system X. And I'm playing the bell a little bit later. So if you think about the system X, this is not really what I could tell you, but I think we still have it all on our mind. There was the Corona crisis. I was also on German television, and we had a big thing. We made models how people go through the Corona crisis. I think our models were very good. So you could differentiate a turmoil, a regression, a hyperstrength, and a neo-normality. I think the decisive question for all of us is, now after Corona, where are we? And I think on the side of marketing and on the side of the brands, there's somehow a clearer understanding that brands have to also fulfill these big Corona wishes. And the big Corona wishes are kind of the big topics, the meaningful topics. So I think today we would talk about soul brands. Before Corona, we talked about love brands. So we even get a little bit higher. And I want to show you some margins, which also my colleague Daniel Döringer brought together. And I'm going to ring the bell now for a second, because this bell is a present from Dr. Janice Land. She's a statistician from the US. And what was very surprising, at least for me as a Catholic, is, well, that suddenly there was growth in the church. If we are Germans, we don't see any good data about the Catholic Church. A big bishop of Berlin, Bishop Bench, said there are no good data about the church. He was a strong bishop. And for Germany, we don't have any good data, but we were surprised that there are utopic data coming from Thomas Morris from the UK. So after Corona, they found in study that Gen Z is going back to church. So you have an increase in the going back to church, especially in the Gen Z. Not so much here in these generations where we might lie. Also the very old are going back to church, but also the young are going back to church. So quite surprising. I think you might also heard that. Also La France, we see here St. Mary of Magdalene has an increase. They have sudden peaks of people being baptized. And in the US, there's on the one hand this study about the converts, where you have much more converts now after the Corona crisis. And I don't know if you heard that, but there is this Harvard Cooperative Congressional Election Study, which went through the media. Basically, it has impressive data. It comes from 15 to 21 and 23 in the Gen Z. Dr. Janice Land, who gave us also this bell, is a statistician, and she also gave a talk about this study. From her understanding, the picture is not so clear, because you also have to understand the sampling very well. This is a YouGov sample. A YouGov sample is pretty squeezed. The US Census might show you different data, so she was a little bit skeptical, but CNN made it quite big. God exists in the algorithm. What a surprise. And just to show you that also from an art perspective, this is an artist also from Russia, Malevich. This is his famous black square in the year 1915, where he first time dared to not show the Christian symbols, but just show black symbols in Russia, which might be a starting point. And I replaced it as a little artist with Mother Mary. And also the generative AI we use could detect Mother Mary here, which would show you God is in the algorithm. However it may be, on this side, this is my summary. I would say the tech perspective is absolutely clear. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to be a Vannevar Bush. So the progress of technology is kind of easy to predict. The crucial question is, on the other hand, what are the surprises we're going to see, for instance, with new target groups? And this will be not as stereotypical as we think these target groups will move on. To say it very easy, just buying ads on TikTok will not solve the problem. It will not be the victory. Rather, it comes from a very good understanding of the human experience, where I see now this big tendency to a desire for the real, about hope, virtues, and values. And that's I wanted to share. I think you understood it very well. And in the middle of this concept is the experience, is the desire. And what we want to show you today, how you, for instance, could use the Sandbox to create something in that for all your marketing needs. And this is very, very good. And it works very well for everything in the digital. If you want to do a tattoo, don't use this tool. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this intro to the day. I think we have a couple of things to sink in and think about. So now we're having a break.